Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode. Today we're going to be talking about the healer within, embracing your inner power.
What if your greatest healer lives inside you?
Now, today we'll uncover how to tap that power right now.
So, now in day to day life, how do you distinguish between self criticism and your wise inner voice?
So, the way that someone explained to me is self criticism is your negative thoughts or your negative inner voice, and which comes from scarcity, fearfulness, which comes of doubts, and all of the other negative things that you can add to this. And I think of my wise inner voice as my white light, my guides, my inner knowing, my intuition. So that's how I would distinguish, or that's how I would say that the two of them kind of go. It's like the yin and the yang. And yeah, I think that that's how I distinguish the two of them. And obviously, trying to use my wise inner voice as much as I can. How about you, Kiki?
For me, I think it comes from a place of like you were saying, a place of scarcity. Like the way that I was raised is anytime you're going to be doing something, and this comes from my mom, so it's something that my mom kind of have like embedded in me, is yes, you want to go into something with like it's going to be positive, there's a positive outcome, but you always want to guard yourself against anything that could negatively like impact you. And I think like I've carried that on throughout my entire life. So before I start listening to my gut or my intuition, I always hear, okay, well, what can happen that's that's bad that's going to stop me from doing that. And I've had to
Mm.
quiet that voice down a lot so that I could really tap into the abundance that I'm trying to put out there into the world, basically. So it's trying to quiet that logic mind because your body has been set up to keep you safe at all times. And if your body thinks that, oh no, you're going to go into like depression if something happens, it always says, okay, so don't do it. And then you have to be like, no, I understand that your role is to protect me, but I also need to move forward. And I can't move forward if I'm only allowing you to take control. So that's kind of like how I've been able to distinguish what my self criticism is trying to hold me back with, and what my inner voice is like saying, no, you are abundant, you do have this in you, and there's going to be a positive outcome.
I love that. I really do. I love that. It's a way better answer than what I gave, but I didn't have examples to give. But I love that. What's one moment you healed yourself without a guru or a guide?
So like are we how we what are we talking about here, healing ourselves?
It could be
Like
anything in
are
your
we
body, your
spiritually
mind,
healing ourselves,
anything. What did you heal
medically
yourself
healing
with?
ourselves?
It could be anything.
I mean, for healing myself, I do want to say I like to go back. I mean, you do a lot with plant medicine and everything, but like it's on, and it's all encompassing. It's for health situations, it's for diving in deeper spiritually and everything. For me, if I'm healing myself, it's really taking care of what I'm putting into my body. That's what I would say. And I'm not using a guru or a guide. Maybe somebody told me about a really good concoction to help me with like boosting my immune system and stuff like that. So that's what I use in moments like that, to make sure that I am healthy, that I can keep going on, that would be really what it is nurturing my actual body so that I can keep going. What about you?
you you touched up on it a little bit where healing myself. So for me, it's literally all three aspects: body, mind, soul. Starting with how I was able to heal my back from the pain years ago with combo, and with that medicine, which led me to more medicine. And from that medicine, I realized that I I found myself go deeper with medicine. And while I was going deeper with medicine, I ended up by tapping into internal healing in the sense of, you know, working with the shadows, working with the lights, and working with all that, which led me to today, where I am now able to self reflect and work on my day to day traumas with, regardless what it is, my healing or my family's, my childhood traumas and all those things. And plant medicine for me has been really helpful. I don't necessarily I rely on plant medicine for many reasons, but at the same time, they are not everything for me. It is not something that I have to do. I realize that there are other practices that you can do, and tune in to those practices as well. So I do a mix of both. And I think that that's important, to honor yourself during medicine, honor yourself with the other modalities, rather that it's yoga, breath work, um, journaling, dancing, any of these other things that I can be doing. And finding really what works for me is where I'm at. So that is, and I wouldn't say that I'm healed at all. I feel like I'm healing, because the healed journey never ends. It's, you're constantly healing. You're never healed unless we're talking about something, a cut or something like that, that can be healed, obviously. But like if you're talking about like in yourself as a spirit, in the spiritual journey, you're never healed. And I feel like people are scared of that. They're like, so why should I heal if I'm never going to be fully healed? Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I
Because
think
we're
it's
always
beautiful.
working through a trauma.
We're always working not just through a trauma, but we're always working through something new, right?
Yeah.
Like you may be working through like something where something's triggering you. All of us are mirrors from each other. And you know, somebody could have said, a complete stranger could have said something out of place for me, and it triggers me. And
And it's
respond,
something that you might have been working on too. And you're like,
or
oh, okay, like I did the work, and you feel in this really good place. And then this happens. You're like, wait, why am I having to revisit this right now? Like, why is it like
because you're
triggering
level
me all over again?
because you're leveling up in that aspect. So there are layers of healing. So that's where I was going with this. There are layers of healing. So let's say something happened to you when you were younger, and you quote unquote healed that place at this level that you're in into your life, because every time you're changing, you're quantum jumping into new realities. So you heal that and things become easier. Now let's say a year from now, somebody comes up and says something to you that triggers you from that trauma that you quote unquote healed, and you realize that it's triggering you, but it's not the same way. Your response isn't the same. You're not as angry, you're not as whatever. And that's when you realize that, in theory, you've worked on that, so you're not so triggered by it. You're still triggered, but a different level. And now the question is like, okay, I've healed that part, but I'm still triggered. Why am I still triggered by this? What is left over? So I always compare it to like a video game, where I'm always like, okay, I've healed that part of me. Great. Now there's more to do. And then the more and more and more you work on that, the easier things become. So I feel like the way I would explain it, you're never fully healed, but things become easier to see and easier to work with when you're confronted again with a trauma that you've already worked on, right?
I love that. I do. I, that hit deep just now, like for real.
Yeah, because people feel like, oh, I already healed that. Why am I going through it again? But differently. Because you've healed it in one angle and there's many angles to heal. There's many angles to go about that. So
And
it's
it's like
never
also like in your timeline, right? Like in your timeline of like you were 10 years old, you were 16 years old, you were 18 years old. Which one of those versions got that healing, got that closure?
absolutely. Absolutely. If you're viewing that from an inner child trauma and now you're an adult and you're like, okay, how am I viewing this as an adult? So maybe you've healed that for the inner child, and so your inner child is now calm and happy because she's like, okay, cool, I'm healed. But then now you're the adult and you're like, I'm revisiting this. What is this telling me in this timeline that I'm in right now? So yeah, essentially part of what you just said makes sense because there's different timelines. And then you're always every day you're becoming a new person, right? And so you're learning new things. Well, if you're allowing yourself to learn new things, but like you're learning and you're changing and your frequency changes. We're talking about somebody who's in the healing path, right? Obviously. And when you're constantly changing, you're being put into different scenarios and different frequencies of the world. And so that is where you get to meet yourself at different depth of yourself. And I think that's also important that we take that into consideration.
I agree with that.
Mm.
So how can our listeners start like a 5-minute daily practice to honor their healer within?
I mean, it's kind of not always the same answer, but kind of is sit in silence if you can, if you can tolerate just sitting in silence and quieting the monkey mind, and journal if you can, meditate if you can, do these kinds of practices, do yoga if you can, do whatever practice you are feeling comfortable with, do whatever you can that you feel practice that you feel that works with you. And if you're completely new to healing and you have no idea where to start, I would start with meditation and or breath work and start working your way through that. What would you
I love
say?
those two. I love
Can,
those two.
yeah.
Like the sitting in silence, breath work, meditation. I think that's what we all kind of gravitate towards. Um,
Hmm.
what I do want to pass on to our listeners about it is be gentle with yourself as well during this whole process, because don't beat yourself up that you didn't get a chance to like journal that day, because life happens, we're aware of it. And if you can schedule just 5 minutes for yourself, then that's great. But if you don't get to do it, like you weren't able to do it today but you have the opportunity to do it tomorrow, like give yourself grace, because you are starting to learn and grow. So don't get upset with yourself if you don't get a chance to do it. Um,
It's not a race either.
it
It's not who
isn't.
can get there fastest and the quickest. And you can't compare somebody who's just starting to somebody who's been doing this for years. You cannot compare yourself. First of all, don't compare yourself to anybody else. Let's start with that basics.
There's only
But
one you.
there's only one of you and it's just you. But the other thing too is that you may learn something faster than somebody who's been doing it for 10 years in that aspect, but they have more knowledge in other places. So don't beat yourself up. Don't try to race. It's not a win, it's not a competition. It's just honoring yourself and be grateful to where you're at and the place that you're at. I think that that's important to also mention So today we've tapped into the simple practices: breath work, touch, visualization that reminds us of the true healer that lives inside of us.
Pick one of these rituals and practice it daily, or give yourself grace. Notice what soft shifts arise in your body or your mind.
If this resonated, please leave us a review so more women can find their own inner medicine. And share this episode with a friend ready to claim their power.
Stay weird.
Stay wild. See you on the next one.